further ado, I'm going to hand it off to Lydia. Lydia, I'll give you a 2-minute warning when you've got 2 minutes left on the clock. And then after that 10 minutes, we'll wind down and take questions. So give it up for Lydia Martin.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Lydia. I've been a member at Indy Hall for about 6 years. I used to live in Philly. Now I live in New York. So you don't see me at the hall very often, but you might see me a lot in the Daily Goals Slack channel and the Indy Skills channel. To give you a little background about me, I work in technology. I also love to make art. And I think these two things have come together to give me a passion for glitch art. And that's what I'm going to be teaching you or showing and telling about today. So your first question, if you're not familiar with glitch art, is what is it? So I didn't look up an official definition. This is just how I would describe it. I would say it's art that represents a computer glitch. So often the images are pixelated or disjointed. And I love glitch art that looks optically chaotic. So where your eye is bouncing around, trying to find patterns, trying to figure out what it's looking at. Now, does glitch art have to be digital? No. So I've made plenty of glitch art that is analog. I'm going to give you a little background on that. And then we're actually going to play with making some digital glitch art. So in terms of my previous analog work, I've made it with really simple materials. So I've used canvas paper, which is essentially a type of a surface to paint on, acrylic paint, a paper cutter, Elmer's glue, and a hardboard. So what does that actually look like? So this here, and hopefully you can see my cursor moving, this here on the left is a hardboard, a long rectangular wooden board. What I did, if you can see these strips lying on the ground, what I did is I painted a whole sheet with reds and purples and browns. I painted a different sheet with light blues and light pinks. And then I sliced up all of these sheets after they had dried into these strips. So you can see here the color, and the white is just, if the strip just flips over, that's the back. So then I line the strips up however I think is beautiful. You can see some rogue strips up here that I was still deciding where to put them. And eventually it creates the image. So this is here on the right is a close-up of that same painting. This piece actually showed in an Indy Hall show called Kin a couple years ago. And here's an example of what a finished piece of mine can look like. So like I said, I love the pixelated look, the optically chaotic look, and this is my previous cat. Okay, I just want to point out that you definitely, if you're making analog glitch art, you definitely don't have to be using paint. So I've played with a lot of materials. So on the left here, that's a mosaic tile. So I was trying to create this glitched effect that I love with mosaic. Turned out it was really hard. On the right, I took plastic bags just that I'd gotten from the grocery store, shredded them, braided them, and wrapped them around a piece of cardboard that you can see poking through. Again, I was just trying to figure out how can I create this optical effect that I really love. Okay. But can glitch art be digital? Absolutely. And it's so fun and it's so easy. So that's what I'm showing you today. So the easiest way to get started is just to go to your search engine of choice and type in glitch art generator. My favorite tool is called Photomosh, and we're going to try it together. So let me get out of this presentation. So you'll see plenty of options, but I'm going to click on Photomosh. Now let's make this a little bit like whose line is it anyway? Can someone give me an image or a topic or an item that they want me to play with for this glitch art piece?
Are you just looking for a noun?
Yeah, a noun.
Ham sandwich. Are you hearing any of these?
No.
All right, we're hearing pineapples, ham sandwich.
I'm just going to go with the first one. Okay, so I'm going to, just for fun, find a picture of a pineapple that I like. Actually, I really like this one. Now, obviously, images online might be copyrighted, so this is just for the sake of playing with it. Here in PhotoMosh, you'll see that I can either upload a file to play with, or I can use my webcam. I've never tried the webcam. I'm just gonna upload a file. So I'm gonna drop it there. And what I like about PhotoMosh is, let me minimize this and expand this. Hopefully you can see all of these options on the right. Can someone just let me know if it's too small and you can't see it?
Looks good.
Great. Okay, so over here on the right are all of the options of things that you can do with this image. Like you can pixelate it, you can slice it, you can shake it. So my cursor might be delayed. So just let me know if that's happening, but I'm gonna start by pixelating this image. So basically I expanded that option and then I can toggle it on or off. So let's leave it on. And then pretty much for every option, you can also vary how it looks. So like if I want more horizontal pixels and fewer vertical pixels, I can play with that. I'm gonna leave it like that. And you just keep playing. So slices. I believe that this is this has more movement. So if I turn on the slices, now we start to see the slices and it's moving. And again, I can play with it if I want more slices, different speed. And I'm gonna add a couple more things. Bad TV, this is one of my favorites. So let's leave that. I think that looks pretty cool. And I'll add one more thing in, let's say a smear. I don't know, I think that's pretty cool. So what I could do is if I click save, it's just gonna take a snapshot as a JPEG. And so here's the image. So there you go, pretty easy. If I want it to be a GIF, you would toggle up here over to GIF and then click record. So that was just an example, but I wanna show you how I actually play with this because I prefer not to use images off the internet. I prefer to use images of my own work. That way, I own what's going in, I own the input, and I own the output. So I just pulled out some photos of my previous work. If someone can just call out like top right, or if you see a name, just give me an idea of one to work with.
Nothing like decay.
Okay, thank you. So I'm gonna drag that over into PhotoMosh. So here's the original image, and I'm just gonna start playing with it. So that is way too intense for me. So I'm gonna not use the shake.
Lydia, you've got about 2 minutes.
Yep. And let's try, I don't like that. So basically you just keep playing and eventually you'll start to like what you're seeing. I'm gonna go kind of quickly here. Dot matrix is really fun. So you see how, depending on how you play with it, it starts to look completely different. And again, that's why I like the input and output. So let me just get this to a point where I really love it. Kind of hard to do on command, as it turns out.
It's the creative process.
Okay, I think this looks pretty cool. So let's do the GIF version. So I'm going to click record. This takes, you can see it loading at the bottom. It takes about 30 seconds to record. So let's let it process.
Lydia, when this is finished, would you share this in Slack?
The image?
Yeah, that GIF?
Yeah, that's actually what I was just gonna do.
Oh, amazing.
So I have like 40 seconds left, so I hope that this finishes.
If you want to, we can.
Yeah, maybe we can take questions.
Start taking questions now, yeah.
Yeah, well, actually, here's the image, so let me just show. It is a GIF, so if I opened it up like this, you'll see all of the static images. that can be really fun to just pick your favorite, or you just drop it. I'll put it into Indie Skills since that's where this conversation started. And upload, and then you should see it there. Okay, ready for questions.
All right, great. If anybody has questions, you can say it and I'll repeat it for the microphone. Naya has a question. How long have you been messing with glitch art?
About 10 years.
Oh my God. Was it always a part of your art practice?
No. So I started making art when I was a kid, and I didn't start making glitch art until the end of college.
Any other questions? Everybody here looks like their brains have been blown out of their heads.
Okay, well, thanks very much. And I love talking about this kind of thing. So if you want to message me, or if you ever come to New York, I would love to talk more about it.
Awesome. All right, round of applause for Lydia.
Bye.
Thank you, Lydia. Look into the Indie Skills channel if you're in Slack, and you will find that GIF. That's my torso. And you will find that GIF. If you have more questions for Lydia about glitch art, or if you want to try things out, I feel like Lydia is sort of the master of the Indie Skills channel in particular. So she is there to help out and to talk more with you, I imagine, and you can make your own glitch art. So we're going to move to our second presenter, who is joining us from outside of Indy Hall. And I believe, Anaya, you were the person who made the introduction for us. We've done some stuff with JEVS here. JEVS has been a program that you might have noticed at Indy Hall in the past, where people are here shadowing and learning about certain careers. And Nora is here to teach us about another program about mentorship called 3 Cups of Coffee. So without further ado, give it up for Nora.
Thank you. So first off, for those who don't know as much about JEVS, JEVS is a very large human services nonprofit here in Philadelphia. About 30 different programs that are sort of under the umbrella of the agency. And one of our sort of relatively newer ones is the program that we're talking about today, 3 Cups of Coffee. So 3 Cups of Coffee is a short-term mentorship program. And it was started by Pennsylvania Women Work out in Pittsburgh. And they partnered with us at JEVS to bring the program here as sort of a pilot program to see how it works in other cities and other sort of areas. So basically the program it's a short-term mentorship program, and it connects people looking for jobs with volunteer mentors in their desired field of work. So that pair meets 3 times over the course of about 6 to 8 weeks. And the mentor provides advice, support, and a couple connections within the industry to sort of plant a seed for a professional network for that mentee. It's really about building some of that social capital, in addition to, advice and support for those who are either looking to change industries, took time off to take care of a sick parent or kids, someone who's part of downsizing layoffs and now is trying to figure out what they want to do next. And, a lot of the time today in looking for jobs is, building those connections, building those networks so that you have folks who are sort of on the lookout for job postings, who might know someone who is looking for someone to fill a particular position. The program is very much not a job placement program. So it's not saying to the mentor, hey, find this person a job. It really is, sit down with them, talk with them about what you do, how you got to where you are, answer the questions that they might specifically have. Maybe it's taking a look at their resume or a cover letter and sort of getting a sense of, what things they can improve in terms of marketing themselves professionally. And especially these days as the sort of job application process, gets a little bit more technological, where nowadays a lot of resumes are sort of put through computer software where they sort of pick out keywords. And so it's how do you make sure those keywords are in your resume without it just being keyword, and also being, easy for someone to read as well. And so the pair meets, as I said, 3 times over the course of 6 to 8 weeks. It's very much in neutral space locations. So particularly coffee shops and cafes, hence the name 3 Cups of Coffee. We have actually been able to partner here in Philadelphia with Saxby's. so that if the parent meets at a Saxby's location, they each get a free small drink. So it sort of takes the who's paying for coffee kind of awkwardness off the table. You know, it really is building off of each meeting. You know, instead of having it be sort of a one-time networking situation, it's, you know, 1 hour meetings that sort of build on each other throughout those 3 meetings. So, you know, you have that continuity and that momentum of that, you know, of multiple meetings over a shorter period of time, that kind of gives you that, you know, support that feels a little bit longer without having the person who is that working professional having to necessarily give up, you know, a lot of time over a course of a year. You know, a lot of times people hear the word mentorship and they're like, I don't have a year to give you. And so it's, you know, being able to have it sort of be a little bit more of a digestible period of time, so that working professionals can give back. You know, we've all of us have had somebody throughout our, you know, personal or professional lives who have sort of helped us get to where we are now. And a lot of us want to be able to give that back, but might not necessarily be able to do that in a longer term environment. And so having this sort of smaller piece can be super helpful. And it really is, you know, for our mentors who are committing time to this, it really is those 3 meetings. At the end of those 3 meetings, a mentor can offer to continue to meet, stay in touch via email, whatever they feel comfortable with. But the mentee is not allowed to ask to continue to meet at the end of that 3rd meeting. So, you know, coming in, you're really committing to those 3 1-hour meetings. And if you want to continue to meet with your mentee afterwards, you're more than welcome to. It really is sort of setting that expectation so that if that really is what you're able to give, that's more than okay. And so we have, you know, mentees from a lot of different industries, ranging from, you know, clinical trial oversight to buying and sourcing and fashion to things like marketing and accounting. It really is pretty incredible, the breadth of interests throughout with different mentees. You know, when we get to a point where we think we have a really good, strong mentor pool, someone comes along and is like, oh, I'm really interested in this. And it's like, oh, never really thought about that as sort of a, you know, whether that was an industry or that was a role that people were really looking to get into. And so we're always looking for new mentors, and it really, you know, it is a very specific match. So there are people who will come into our mentor pool. Sometimes it takes 4 to 6 weeks, 4 to 6 months to get matched with a mentee because it's really specific. You know, if someone wants to get into digital marketing, I'm not just going to toss them at someone who does marketing in general. I'm going to try to find somebody who does digital marketing so that they can specifically give that feedback to the digital marketing side of things and not just be like, I think this is what sort of people are looking for on the digital side of things. And so that both the mentee is getting the information that they really need, and that mentor is being able to really specifically give back to what they're particularly doing in their industry. And so it really, it's a really exciting new thing we have here in Philly. We have about 140 mentors in the pool, but we're always looking for more because there are always holes. If you had told me about a year and a half ago when we started this program that we'd have, you know, 140 mentors after a year and a half, I would have been like, yes, we're good, we're set. No. There are still little gaps and still areas that we have folks looking for mentors within. Some of our more popular ones are software design, project management, you know, marketing in general, sort of across that spectrum is super popular currently. But probably the two most popular are probably software development and project management overall. And I think that sort of speaks to sort of where the different job openings are now as the world gets more technologically advanced, and that there are folks who are sort of bringing more little pieces of you know, folks in different positions and organizations together on a particular project. There's more collaboration these days sometimes than there may have been in the future. So in the past. So you know, I talked with a team here, and you know, one of the things that we really are looking to do is sort of build teams within, whether it's different organizations, different co-working spaces, things like that. And we know there are so many different diverse folks and work that's being done within the Indie Hall space. And, you know, I would love to chat with any of you more about the program and talk to you a little bit more about your background. You know, as was said, we had one of our youth programs at JEVS come through and do some job shadowing. And this is a way to then, you know, sort of continue that relationship. And as I said before, you know, our mentees are across a wide range of industries, but also a wide range of ages and experiences. We have a very small group of folks who are just getting out of college and looking to figure out, you know, sort of what's next. But our average mentee is 40 with a master's degree. So a lot of folks who are looking for career changes, who are part of downsizing layoffs, or, you know, were raising kids and now want to get back into the workforce. And so, you know, I know each and every one of you has had a different experience, and everyone's sort of career path is very, 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 very infrequently is it linear. You know, everyone sort of has these twists and turns that come up. And so would love to chat with anyone who wants to know more information about the program and be interested in becoming a mentor. We also have some events that happen, you know, sort of outside of the mentoring space. We had our first speed mentoring event last month, where we had mentors who weren't matched with mentees, mentees who were still waiting for mentors come together, and each mentee got to speak with 3 mentors for about 20 minutes, and sort of get that general advice, resume support, things like that. And so that we're trying to really make sure that we're having an impact on people's lives, even if they're not necessarily matched with somebody yet. But obviously, you know, there's a lot more information to be given about the program and whatnot. So I'm hanging around for the other presentations because these are super interesting, and would love to talk to anyone afterwards. I have a little bit of you know, paperwork and things to give you in terms of more information on the program. Would love to get some of you guys on board in the mentor pool. So I really thank you for letting me come and visit and learn about all these awesome things that you guys are talking about, and share a little bit more about this as well.
I'm going to take 5 minutes for questions. Any questions for Nora?
So more out of curiosity, you're committing to 3 1-hour sessions.
Yep.
I'm single and I've been on a lot of that. That sounds terrifying. What if they're terrible person on hour 1?
Absolutely. So that sort of speaks to the process that we onboard people through. So, so the mentees go through, you know, a multi-step application process. So they're either referred to us from an inside program inside of JEVS, or they come from the general public, have heard about us, whether it's through our partnership with Saxby's or word of mouth. So I then have a phone call with them, just to get a sense of what they're looking for, where they are, whether or not they'd be a good fit for the program. Once I get the sense that they would be a good fit, I send them the application paperwork, and I don't follow up. So if they send it back to me, awesome, they're ready. If not quite ready for the program. So I won't follow up and sort of beg them to finish the paperwork. It's very much, you know, are you ready? Are you ready to take this initiative and really push through this program? Once I get the paperwork back, I meet with them in person for about 45 minutes to an hour, really dig deeper, get to know them, get to know what they're looking for, and, you know, make sure, again, that this is a program that's going to be beneficial for them. When I have a mentor that I think would be a good fit for a mentee, I reach out to that mentor and say, hey, I think this person would be a good fit for you. Here's their resume. Here's their info sheet. Take a look at their resume, take a look at their info sheet. Let me know if you think this would be a good fit. So I'm not just going to toss someone at you and be like, here you go, have fun. You know, we really want to make sure that the mentor is also very much on the same page with what that mentee is looking for, and, you know, feels comfortable with that mentee. In the very rare case, / hasn't happened yet, knock on wood, that the match isn't a good fit, you just reach out to me and say, hey, I don't know if this is actually going to work. And that's fine. We talk about it. I figure out what the best next steps are going to be, and we sort of go from there. So it's a very vetted process within the mentees. And obviously we want this to be beneficial for everybody. So if it's something that doesn't seem to be a good fit, you just let me know and we sort of go from there. No, I've never done any professional matchmaking in any other context, but it is, you know, it's funny what some people will compare it to. We actually had one mentee who was like, so it's kind of like organ donation a little bit. And I was like, that's one way to think about it, I guess. So there's, you know, there are lots of different ways to, so it sort of is, you know, this professional networking matchmaking kind of thing. Yeah.
As an organ donor, I don't know about it.
I know. I was like, okay, I know you're a science person and that's where your mind goes, but that's a little bit of a reach. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, absolutely. So talking a little bit more specifically about where the holes are in software development. You know, we will have someone come in who's interested more in the front end part of software development, and we might have more back end folks in our mentor pool. So then finding someone who has more of that front end experience, or someone who's really interested in the UX part of that software development, or you know, is specifically looking to work with Java or AWS or something along those lines. You know, again, we try to be as specific as possible with everything. And so having folks with a wide range of experiences across whether it's software development or marketing or HR, you know, that sort of is the crux of the program, is really making that specific match. So software development in general, we would love to have more mentors within, and the more sort of wide ranging, the better. So thank you.
Time for one more question. I have one.
Yes.
I have a really good friend who needs to make a adoption. He works really long hours in a stressful environment. It is killing him, but part of his schedule for work. He gets very little sleep, wakes up, takes kids to school, goes to work, comes home real late, so on and so on. What would you recommend for accommodating someone who really needs programs like these, has a very difficult time making time?
Absolutely. So the question was sort of how do we, so on the mentee side of things, if there's someone who you think might benefit from this, who doesn't have a lot of time. And one of the things about this program is there isn't a specific, this is when you have to meet. It very much is, all the scheduling is done between the mentee and mentor. So if the mentee is like, you know, the only time I have to meet is this one lunch hour, I'll be looking for mentors who have availability during that lunch hour. Part of the mentor intake form, you know, sort of lists what times different mentors are available. And so I won't match them with somebody who can only meet at nighttime. So it really is, you know, specific to each person, not just in the industry and things like that, but also time and availability and stuff like that. And so if you know anyone also who is looking for work, and is maybe running into some obstacles or whatnot, that's also something I would be more than happy to talk to you about as well. All right. Yeah, please do. Yeah, awesome.
Round of applause for Nora.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, our next presenter is Matthew Tay. I have a clicker, should work. Oh yeah, by all means, if you'd like. I'm here to serve, my friend. So I'll hand off the mic to you.
Thanks. Thank you. Okay, so I actually don't do much of this for a living, but I do a little bit of it. And I figured this would be helpful for y'all because you're all kind of self-employed in some way, right? Who's self-employed in here? Most people. Okay, great. So you pay yourself. Okay, so you might have come across the question. I'm willing to bet most of you are organized as an LLC, maybe sole member, so you're taxed as sole proprietor. There's a point when you probably want to be taxed as an S-corporation, and I'll go over that with a little bit with you now. So an LLC, usually your accountant or whoever the first person you talk to will say, organize as an LLC. It's easy. It's understandable. You just create an operating agreement and then just a one-pager, and you kind of go by that. This is how the business is going to be run. With a corporation, it's a bit more formal. You need bylaws, you need stock, you need shareholder minutes, all that stuff. Even if you're a corporation of one, you still need to do that BS. It's just doesn't take much time, but you still need those records. It's just like one more chore that you have to do. So why would you want to do that? You don't necessarily have to. You can actually organize as an LLC and choose to be taxed as an S-corp. You not go through all the formalities, but still get the tax advantages of an S-corp, which I'll get into. And you do that through IS Form 2553. So what are the difference between self-employment taxes and wage taxes? Did anyone have a job before they became self-employed? You had a W-2 from your employer? Right, remember FICA? You paid 6.3% of Social Security and then 2.whatever% of Medicare. Self-employment, FICA taxes, same thing, same damn thing. Overall, it's 15.3% of every dollar that you make. Basically, 15 cents out of every dollar goes towards Social Security and Medicare. Whether if you were employed for someone else, your employer paid the other half of that, you paid half. Now that you're self-employed, you pay the whole nut, which, you know, it's 15.3%. That's higher than most of a lot of people's taxable federal income, if you really break it down. So with an LLC, you pay self-employment taxes on everything. There's no way around it. You're paying that 15.3% off every dollar minus expenses. With an S corporation, you issue yourself wages and then you pay FICA on that, but then you can also take profits. You do not pay taxes on that portion on profits, right? So why would you go through all that? To save that 15.3% on self-employment taxes. There's some other things which I'll get into, but that is the big picture of why you would do something like that. So I'll get into Social Security just a little bit. There's optimal points. I call it income alchemy. There's an optimal wage you need to pay yourself. You shouldn't pay yourself more than $65,000 a year. That's when wages, your marginal returns come down. So the way Social Security works, every $950 roughly of money monthly that you pay into Social Security tax, if you pay yourself, see 12.4%, let's say $900, that's what your wages are. You basically get 90% of that once you retire, right? That's a pretty good, yeah, that's like a pension. That's like a freaking awesome pension. That's like a dollar for dollar match, or that's a dollar you put in of wages, not tax. You only pay 12% on that dollar, but they're going to give you back 90%. That's a pretty sweet deal for Social Security, right? Awesome. Up until 5,583, then they start paying 32%, and then above that 5,500, you get back 15%. So you're paying 12% to get back 15%. Can kind of do the math. It's simple math, but ultimately the 32% still makes sense. So about $65,000 a year, 12 times 5,500. It's about where you want to cut yourself off. Social Security also stops at 110 or so. Next slide. So corporate profits are not subject to FICA taxes. So let's just say a hypothetical example. You gross $85,000 this upcoming year. How would that, affect you? So your expenses for this year, your deductible, so let's just say they're $25,000. That leaves $60,000. If you're an LLC, you pay FICA tax, self-employment tax, same thing, called self-employment tax, on that entire $60,000. So that's $9,180. The number that I gave you before, the average income monthly expense, $5,000. So you're at a good bend point, actually. You're not, wasting money. So, maybe it's worth it to pay that, right? Because you're going to get it back once you retire. They're giving you back a fairly decent rate of return. Not excellent, depending on how old you are. If you're 30, they're giving you back 32% on 15%, so they're giving you back double over 30 years. The stock market usually doubles every 7.8 years. So is it a great rate of return? Not really, but it's not terrible. You're paying it to Social Security, pay your taxes. Anyway, so that's kind of how you can think about it. If your tax is an S-corp, you only pay FICA on the wages. So the way this works, you have to pay yourself a reasonable salary. For most of us in here, we trade services. We're not, building widgets, right? We're trading time for money, kind of, most of us in this situation. So for most jobs where that's the case, a reasonable salary is anywhere from 45 to 55%. Let's just say 50 for ease of math. So that's 60, you got to pay yourself 50% wages. That $30,000 in wages, you pay FICA on that, it's half the number. So you're only paying $4,500, right? So you get to keep that other $4,500 because you took it as taxes and you pay taxes on that like ordinary dividends, not wages. So you save on those FICA taxes. Still pay your income taxes though. Any questions so far? Let's go then. Let's go. This is a big overview, but Oh, Philadelphia. This isn't as important, but I want to paint an accurate picture for you. You save $4,500 on self-employment taxes, but Philadelphia, they want their cut too. So if you do this, they're going to take a cut of those savings. That's basically what it comes down to. If you're organized as an LLC right now, you already pay net profits tax. If you're a corporation, you have to pay business income and revenue tax. It's just the net income tax. It's just the net profit tax, but they add on a little extra tax on top of that. It's the same damn thing, okay, for the most part. So the first $100,000 is excluded. So, you can create multiple entities as S corporations and make sure they all make less than $100,000 and avoid all this, which is a strategy some people use. But then unless you're capable of doing your own taxes, you got to hire someone to do the taxes. So, roll that up into your head there too. So the tax on revenue, anything over $100,000 in Philadelphia, if you're a corporation, I forget off the top of my head whether they do that if you're LLC or not, but if you're a corporation, definitely. It's a 1.45 mil, so it's $1.41 for every $1,000 above that. For most of us, a trade services and time for money, we all cap out about 150,000. That's just what I've seen during the course of my career. It's not a ton. You're paying $50, $60, whatever. It's not going to hurt that much. If you're a huge corporation like Comcast or something, that's a pretty big tax nut, but just something to keep in mind. For most of us, it doesn't really register. It's a few bucks. The net profits tax, business income, which hopefully we're all familiar with. Here's an example of how that works. It's 6.3% tax on anything over $100,000. So let's just say you made you had a really good year, best year ever. You had made $210,000. Okay, and then of that, you claim $50,000 as profit after you do your taxes, right? On your K-1, it comes through as $50,000. So you have your $100,000 here, which is excluded, $50,000, which is your profits, enter your net taxable receipts online. So, the taxable receipts. So basically, it's kind of a formula based on how do I do this? So take $210,000 minus $100,000. So you have 110 divided by 100,000. So that comes out to about 55%. So of your gross, right? Okay, I'll wrap it up. It's about 55%. So you get that formula, this alchemy. So you have to pay 55% tax on that. It's a thing. I have a website I can send you to which can explain the math a little bit better. But anyway, so you own you're going to owe a bunch of income tax to Philadelphia. But it's still better than the 15.3%, right? Because it's 6.3% instead of 15.3%. And then if you structure things right, you can avoid that. Next slide, please. Oh, I'm not moving along. This is the last slide, right? Okay, cool. So there's a difference between distributions and K-1 income. Distributions are actual money you move out of your business bank account. You move that money into your personal account. It's a physical transaction that happens through the year. Throughout the course of the year, though, sometimes you don't even do that, but it shows up as K-1 income. K-1 income doesn't involve the real transfer of assets. I'm gonna skip this. Don't worry about this too much. It's a small tax that only applies to school. Philadelphia school income tax is 3%. Most of us won't ever experience that, so don't worry about that too much. But that's going down the rabbit's hole. Whether you should be an S-corp or an LLC, and it's pretty easy to become an S-corporation, start paying your taxes. Ultimately it comes down to your revenue. If your gross receipts are $80,000 or above, take a look at it. If they're not 80,000, don't worry about it. Grow your business. Once you're up to 100,000 in gross receipts and up, you should probably look at it. You'll probably save $2,000 to $4,000 a year. Yeah, taxes. All right. Cool.
Applause for Matthew K. I'm going to take 5 minutes for questions.
Yes, I actually work in health insurance, by the way. But it does. Health insurance does wheel back into that. But again, it's a smaller equation than that bigger calculation. Go ahead.
So I mean, you're saying about then you could have an S-corp instead of an LLC.
Yes. I say gross receipts, $80,000 in gross receipts is about when you should start looking at it. If you're in a business, like I'm guessing most people here, you're trading skills and services for money, right? Most of us do that. I don't see anyone here like building wrenches and stuff like that, right? Right, that's a different thing. I would say once your net revenue is 100 probably. So, for that thing, yeah, you got to try to keep it underneath $100,000, or else Philly really takes their cut. Yeah, I mean, yeah. I won't get into everything there, but it might work out better that way. S corporation, talk to your accountant. I can send you to some resources. But once your like net revenues, are above, or how do I say this? Gross revenues of $80,000 after, product expenses and stuff like that, right? Adam?
Let's say, of those 4 slides, a lot of useful information, but it's a bit overwhelming. Would you recommend resources or a suite of resources to check in on some of those things?
Well, I have a blog article. I'll add some more details. Fellow travelers. I also run a payroll company. We're also a PEO. So if you're not, it's a professional employer organization. You basically become our employee, legal employee. You're still, your own self. We don't tell you what to do, but for legal purposes, we take you through those calculations and kind of pay yourself wages. And then we also have health insurance, which is really the main reason you join that for the most part. There is a blog article on there that kind of goes in depth a little bit more on there. And then if you guys have any questions, like message me on Slack or anything, and I'll be glad to write a blog article to go into it and drill down deeper into it. Yeah, I guess the first slide is actually the most important, right? It's really it's that 15.3%. That's the largest number. Everything else kind of filters down from there. but that 15.3% is really what you're looking at.
If you're cool with it, we can share the slides too.
Yeah. I did those in like 5 minutes. That's
Hey,
fine.
great. Any other questions for Matt? Similar expression to the Lydia presentation, mine's from Malone. Maybe a different shade of stress on everyone's face. My 100,000 revenue for this year looks crazy. Indy Hall pays me big bucks.
Right.
So I'm going to start a separate S-corp.
Yeah. Well, I mean, don't get bogged down in this. Always worried about your business and growing revenue. I mean, spending 2 weeks of your life figuring this out to save $2,000 is probably not a good investment of time, right? So, you know. Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, it's always a good thing to. Yeah. Yeah, it's a professional employer organization. It's Fellow Travelers. Website is fellowpeo.com. Should probably added that to the sites. But yeah, we're basically a payroll company. But if you also want to get health insurance through us at a group rate, we can do that as well. But then if you do that, you got to pay wages, and then you got to become an S-corp basically before you do that, right? You don't have to, but it just doesn't make any sense for you to stay in LC and join our company. Okay.
Mike,
Yeah.
do you have more questions for Matt about the income or taxes for the health insurance opportunity with fellow travelers? And Matt is back. Another round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have one last presenter today. You know, let's all get a palate cleanser. Let's all go out of this one feeling optimistic. We're going to talk about the coronavirus. All right, I'm going to hit play. And do you want the clicker or do you want me to do it? Okay, sounds good. Give it up for Natalya.
Hi everyone, my name is Natalya, and so I'm currently a software developer, but before I was a software developer, I was a biomedical researcher at MD Anderson and National Institute of Health. And so I did research on the receptor that's downstream of the coronavirus, and so I thought it'd be nice to sort of talk about the actual science behind it and not just all the fear-mongering that's been going on. So next slide. So what this talk is, I'm going to talk a little bit about the morphology of it, about what makes it a unique virus, its action of mechanism, and its transmission from bats to humans via a reservoir species. Next one. So what this talk is not is all this crap that's coming on the news cycle, because a lot of it is very biased, and I'd prefer just talk about everything. Everything that's on my slide has been peer-reviewed, and there's nothing that's sensationalist. So next slide. So what exactly is a coronavirus? You guys hear about what it is all the time. So the reason why it's called a coronavirus is not because of the beer, it's because it has a halo. So this is an electron microscope vision of it when it was first done in 1960s. So it has a halo around it, and thus why it was called coronavirus. So the genome is a linear single-stranded RNA virus. The only important part about it is that compared to RNA viruses, it's one of the largest RNA viruses that we've ever discovered. And the reason why that's important is that means that if you have a larger genome, that means you have higher rates of mutation. So among the other RNA viruses, it has extremely high rates of mutations. It's the only virus that we know of that if you have two different virons, which is what you would call this, affect a single human cell, you'll both have recombination events. Meaning that you can have two different, like you'd have 3 different mutations within a single human cell. So that's why there's so many different versions of them. First discovered in 1960. The nucleocapsid structure is S, which is the spike. You have the envelope, the membrane, and the nucleocapsid, which contains all the RNA virus. So for the purpose of this talk, I'm mostly going to be talking about the spike, which is the S protein, because that's how it enters within the human cells. So the mechanism of action, so S, the spike protein, I'm going to be talking about ACE2, which is angiotensin II receptor, and that's sort of how it enters in within the cell. So ACE2 is a receptor that's within the lung areoles, like your lung tissues in your humic stomach, and it's in most of your endothelial cells. but it's particularly important within your lung system. So the way that you can think of it as the way you can think of the receptor is that it's essentially a drawbridge that immune cells use to enter within the cell. It's if the cell is saying that it's infected, it's how the immune cells come in. So there's the receptor, and there's also the protein version of ACE2. The protein version becomes the receptor later on. But the soluble ACE2, which is just the normal ACE2 receptor, is very important for the cell because it cleaves angiotensin. So angiotensin is naturally occurring in the cell, and it controls cell permeability. So that's really important because, if your cell is too permeable, you have, shock. You have you can have like systemic shock. But if it's too tense, then you can have hypertension. So it's like a very narrow line that angiotensin has to be controlled. So ACE2's job is to make sure that angiotensin doesn't go crazy. So the SARS, so a lot of these signs are showing SARS virus, but it's the exact same thing with coronavirus. So the interesting thing is that the SARS virus binds to the transmembrane receptor and removes it from the surface. So it closes that drawbridge for the immune cell to come in. And then it goes into the genome of the cell and then make sure that it doesn't make any more ACE2, like no more soluble ACE2, because the virus doesn't want other immune cells coming in. It doesn't want any more drawbridges. So that means that while it's hiding from the immune cells and sort of self-replicating, angiotensin is going up and up and up. And that's a good thing for the virus because essentially what angiotensin is doing is puncturing holes in the cell. So that means it's easier for virons like the virus to escape. And so because the cells have all these holes in it from angiotensin, that's what causes lung damage, because lung tissue is very, very sensitive to oxidative damage. Because that's all what the lung tissues have to do is do oxygen transport. So that's why when you get infected with SARS or any other coronavirus, that's why you have massive lung damage. And so this affinity for this ACE2 for the transmembrane, that's unique to recent strains of coronavirus. There are 5 different families of coronavirus, and not all of them are infectious to humans, but very few of them are lethal to humans. And the reason why is because there was a recent mutation within the SARS, MERS, and the Wuhan virus that it has affinity to ACE2. So that's why it's sort of new and more dangerous. Next slide. Yeah. So you guys have heard a lot about how the that the coronavirus comes from a bat. That is true. You can find that through genetic sequencing, but that happened over 2,000 years ago. It's a very ancient bat strain. So that all messed up. So the recent thing was that you had the mutation for the ACE2 receptor. It first happened in SARS, and it was spread by this civet, which is like a mongoose looking thing. And then from SARS, there was a further mutation where it was the Mediterranean version of, it's basically the Mediterranean version of SARS. But the reason why it's different is because one, it had a super high infectious rate. It had a 35% case fatality. And the reason why that was more dangerous is because not only was it the lungs, it was also the stomach. So because remember what I said, that the receptor is both on lungs and in other epithelial. So that one was very specific for stomachs. And then we come to here where the most recent virus, the coronavirus that we're all talking about, is the Wuhan virus. And several independent researchers have shown that the pangolin was the thing that is the reservoir species between bats to humans. Let me get to the end. Yeah. And then, sorry, it's kind of messed up, but CFR is the case fatality rate. So once you have critical, once you are admitted to a hospital and shown that you are seropositive, and when doctors say that you are in critical care, that's the probability that you will die once you are critical care. So you can't really see it, but SARS was 15%, MERS was 35%, and this most recent one is actually only 2.3% if you really think about it. So next one. So this is a little bit easier of a way to look at it. So you have SARS, MERS, and then the Wuhan virus. I think they just recently changed the name to 2019 coronavirus because obviously the town of, they don't want to be affiliated, but it's also easier for you to understand. So SARS and MERS, we already knew that the respiratory droplets and physical contact were the main forms of transmission. we know that respiratory droplets and physical contact have been involved in Wuhan, but there's also unknowns because there are individuals. The main big difference between SARS, MERS, and the most recent coronavirus is that there's asymptomatic individuals. So both SARS and MERS did not have asymptomatic. So that's why a lot of scientists are kind of confused and like, what do we do about this? Because it's harder to track overall epidemiology data, because how do you check if someone's asymptomatic? So it means that they're responding like through blood, like they have the antibodies to the coronavirus, but they're not showing any of the physiological symptoms. So the only way you can get that is by like direct association. But if you don't understand the transmission, like how do you even screen for that? Yeah, and the other issue is that this most recent coronavirus has a lot longer incubation time. So SARS and MERS was 2 to 7 days on average. It was about 3 days. MERS was 5 days. And the most recent data as of Monday is that the incubation time is 24 days. Meaning that, so starting from when you first get the virus within your system to when you start showing physiological symptoms is 24 days, which is a lot longer. And it means that more people are traveling, especially in areas like Wuhan, which is a large commercial area. Also, there's issues with the fact that through international law, quarantine is 14 days. So that's something that people are like, well, now we just know that it's 24. What do we do about it? So yeah, there's a lot of really cool things about it. I think in terms of, we're very lucky the fact that because SARS is so similar to Wuhan, it's a direct ancestor, all the research that we've been doing on SARS, we can apply it pretty readily. There's medications that were already in phase 2 trial, clinical trial for SARS. And I forget the name of the antiviral, but it was actually something that was made for SARS and Ebola. And then they tested it as there's an international law where it's, if you have a medication that if someone's in critical care, it's called like compassionate use. And so there was a patient in Seattle who had this most recent coronavirus, and they were multi-organ like failure, and they were given this medication and they were discharged in a week. So it's now in phase 3 clinical trial. It hasn't been broadly shown, but the fact that we can use SARS medication to also work on coronavirus is a really cool, interesting new thing. So I know I just threw a lot of science at you. I can try to explain it slower. ACE2 is really interesting. Do you want to go to the next?
Yeah, that is 10 minutes. So if you want to wrap up, and we'll do quite perfect. Yeah, science.
Yeah, so science is
We're
awesome.
gonna take 5 minutes for questions. If you have any questions, go ahead and raise your hand. If you wouldn't mind, just repeat the question.
Yeah, sure. Any questions about the receptor or the actual biology and not the like socioeconomic aspect? Because there's Fox News for that. Mm-hmm. That's so assuming we're talking about normal coronavirus where you get infected, you start coughing at like 7 days. So with the coronavirus, the most recent strain, assuming that you're not asymptomatic, it is 28 days for yours to have enough virus in your cell to start creating like physiological damage. Mm-hmm. Yes. So she's asking questions about overall incubation. The answer to that is yes and no. So normally for incubation, it's sort of like a threshold. Like I'm sure you guys know about when you guys like get the flu, like you start having it, you start feeling crappy, then you get really, really sick. And then like towards the end of it, like you're still infectious, but like your body has like overcome in your immune system just sort of in repair mode. It's the same sort of thing with incubation where it's you like start going out, then you're really infectious, your immune system fights back against it, like your infectiousness goes down, and then if your immune system doesn't if it doesn't win that first battle, then you become more infectious, then you start having physiological symptoms. And honestly, some of those physiological symptoms are actually as a result of your immune system. So that's why like with all these coronavirus stuff, like the general, like they have like all this general malaise and like fever, like that's all from your body protecting itself. That's not from the virus. Yes. I think there's no definitive facts about it. So, I mean, how can, so she was asking questions about the transmission. So we know for a fact that it's through like aerosol droplets. We know that it's through, it's like mucosal surfaces, like around the mouth. But we do not, there's some other questions that people were having. So like, for example, MERS, one of the ways that it was transmitted was actually through contaminated, like through feces and like other like gastrointestinal issues and vomit. We don't know that about Wuhan because it doesn't cause as many people to vomit and people haven't been testing for that. So no one's gonna, yes. Which I don't want to do. Yeah, I mean, it can't hurt. So was that a question or are you just stating something? I would probably, is there? Yeah, so I guess she was asking, should we prepare if Wuhan is the coronavirus, the most recent coronavirus, if it's going to be more similar to SARS and MERS, or if it's going to be something completely different? Yeah, serologically, I mean, the Wuhan virus is 98% similar to SARS. So I'm going to say SARS. Most of the academic researchers have been saying the same thing for SARS. The problem is that SARS is also like super infectious. And so I think it's smart for people to take precautions with something they don't know. But yes.
I heard that question. Where, like, the SARS had a fatal rate of 15%.
Mm-hmm.
35%. The corona doesn't 2.4. I don't even need to wear a medical mask. So it's like, it seems like so much more mild.
So the one problem that I have with the MERS virus is something I was going to say if I had more time. So MERS has the fatality rate was 35%. That's also considering the fact that the overall people that were infected with it was only 2,000. And of those 2,000, it was like 780 had fatality. That's also the Middle East and Saudi Arabia where it wasn't as interconnected. And I think also due to the fact that like gastrointestinal, you have more dehydration. It was almost like a diarrheal disease, and that has a higher fatality rate than maybe something that's like more of a lung disease. I mean, SARS had almost 50K and a lower fatality, and then Wuhan has almost 50K and still such a low fatality. And if anything, that number is going to go down because we're not even factoring in asymptomatic individuals. Yes. I don't know off the top of my head.
Be a weird thing to know off the top of your head. That's the time for all of our questions. So
wait, want to do one more?
What's that?
There's like one extra bonus slide.
A bonus slide after the question slide.
That's a photo I took of ACE2 when I was like doing research on it. It's really cool.
This is like a felt cute, might delete later.
Yeah. Yeah, so like this is an immune cell like binding to ACE2, like entering in the cell.
Oh wait, hold on. You yourself took this.
Yeah.
That's cool as hell.
It's a scanning electron microscope. This was in MD Anderson.
Oh shit! I love that you wrote ACE2 when you go apart. It's so close to Valentine's Day.
Yeah. It's actually in a cardiac cell. No. This was a mouse ACE2. Poor little mouse. Yep. So Science is cool. What?
We're going to save that question for another show and tell. Round of applause for Natalia.
Yeah, pangolin is super cute. I call it sand shrew because Pokemon rules. Okay, so that is our show and tell for today. It was a stacked roster. Thank you, Natalia. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Nora. And if you're still with, I think Lydia may have signed off. Thank you, Lydia. If you've never done a show and tell presentation, it's just like that. 10 minutes for a presentation. Anything you want to share. 5 minutes Q&A. You can talk to Johnny because I want to troll him. Just go find Johnny anywhere at Indy Hall and talk to him. Or you can talk to me, and I'll sign you up for our next one, which is third Thursday in March, which I think is the 19th. I don't know. The 19th. So if you'd like to do one, or if you know someone that you would like to bring to Indy Hall to introduce to our community, that's awesome. And that's our show and tell for today. These are only the beginning of conversations. If you want to learn more, chat with any of our presenters today, and chat with this fellow about getting a pangolin for Indy Hall. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.